Hello, miladies of inestimable value. Even the strongest walls don't fall with noise, they collapse in silence. That's the unnerving truth about Sigma females. Studies show that women, on average, endure stress longer before breaking compared to men, but when they finally snap, the fallout is far more devastating. Now imagine that endurance amplified by a Sigma female, the woman who carries storms inside her while the world mistakes her calm for weakness. Her breaking point isn't a loud explosion. It's a seismic shift that leaves people rattled long after she's gone. And here's the twist. She doesn't just break down, she breaks out of toxic patterns, out of suffocating expectations, out of cages people thought she'd stay in. And when that happens, trust me, nobody wants to be standing too close. It's terrifying, it's unpredictable, and yes, if you're the one who pushed her there, you might want to start practicing your "oops, my bad" face, though it probably won't save you. This is what really happens when a Sigma female reaches her breaking point, and it's not the story anyone is prepared for. Number 1. She realizes she doesn't need anyone. When a Sigma female reaches her breaking point, the most terrifying transformation isn't in her anger, her silence, or even her vengeance. It's in the moment she finally understands in her bones that she doesn't actually need anyone. That realization doesn't come with fireworks or drama. It slips in quietly, almost cruelly, after she's been pushed past her limits and stripped down to her rawest self. And once it settles, she's never the same again. For most people, needing others is a kind of safety net. It keeps them playing along, tolerating nonsense, begging for love and bending to expectations. But for a Sigma female, when that safety net burns away, she discovers something much more powerful. She can stand alone, fully, without compromise. That awareness makes her untouchable in a way that unsettles everyone who ever tried to control her. The reason it's terrifying is because independence at that level isn't about money, status, or having her own place. It's about emotional liberation. She no longer clings to people for comfort or validation. She doesn't chase anyone's approval, doesn't wait to be chosen, and doesn't bargain her worth for scraps of attention. Once she's broken, she knows with absolute certainty that she can walk into any storm, any crisis, and come out whole, even if she's standing alone on the other side. The people around her feel that shift instantly. Those who used to manipulate her with guilt suddenly lose all leverage. Those who thought they could keep her tethered with love find themselves cut off cleanly, without a trace of hesitation. She doesn't fight for closure, she doesn't beg to be understood, and she doesn't waste a single breath explaining herself. She just leaves, and when she leaves, it's final. The irony is that her breaking point doesn't weaken her. It strips her of illusions. And in that stripped-down state, she becomes stronger than she's ever been. That's what makes her unstoppable. People can betray her, misunderstand her, even abandon her, but none of it breaks her anymore. Once she's discovered she doesn't need anyone, she walks through life like someone who can never be caged again. And that's what terrifies the world the most. Number 2, her empathy shuts down completely. When a Sigma female reaches the point where her empathy shuts down, it's not a temporary mood swing, it's a permanent rewiring. This is a woman who once carried other people's pain on her shoulders, who stayed up nights replaying conversations, who gave chance after chance because she believed there was good left to salvage. But at breaking point, that warmth burns out like a star that gave too much light for too long. And what's left is cold, merciless clarity. She no longer feels the pull to rescue people from their mistakes. Where she once leaned in with understanding, she now steps back with indifference. Tears don't move her, excuses don't soften her, and apologies don't sway her. She's not cruel, but she's detached. People who used to manipulate her emotions suddenly find they're speaking to a wall that listens maybe, but feels nothing. The terrifying part isn't just her indifference to others, it's how efficient she becomes because of it. Without empathy clouding her, she makes decisions with surgical precision. If someone is toxic, she cuts them off without hesitation. If a relationship is draining her, she drops it mid-sentence, no explanation given. She no longer worries about how it looks or how much it might hurt the other person. To her, People who once consumed her energy become just moving parts, replaceable, irrelevant, and incapable of weighing her down again. And that shift is jarring to everyone around her. Friends who were used to endless understanding feel abandoned. Family who leaned on her for emotional labor are shocked to find she won't carry them anymore. Partners who once relied on her forgiving nature are confronted with someone who doesn't even entertain the idea of reconciliation. The irony is that her lack of empathy is not born from cruelty, but from exhaustion. She gave until she had nothing left, and when the breaking point snapped her open, she realized she could live without giving at all. From that moment forward, she doesn't waste emotions on people who drain her. And once empathy dies inside a Sigma female, the people who once depended on it are left terrified, because they finally realize she doesn't care if they sink or swim. Number 3, she stops masking her brutal intelligence. When a Sigma female reaches the edge and stops masking her brutal intelligence, it's like watching someone take the safety off a weapon they've been carrying their entire life. Normally, she holds back. She softens her words, downplays her insight, and pretends not to notice the cracks in people's lives because she knows the truth can be too much for most to handle. But at her breaking point, the restraint is gone. She stops caring about sparing feelings, and that's when the sharpness of her mind becomes terrifying. She doesn't need to raise her voice or get dramatic. Her weapon is precision. With a few words, she can expose a person's deepest insecurity, cut through the masks they've built, and dismantle their entire identity without breaking a sweat. What makes it chilling is that she's not guessing. She's been observing, silently collecting data, and piecing people apart in her mind for years. When she finally speaks the truth, it feels less like an opinion and more like a verdict. People around her experience it as a kind of psychological undressing. The excuses they've relied on, the manipulations they've perfected, the image they've worked so hard to project, she tears through them in seconds. And she does it with such calm conviction that there's no room for argument. She doesn't even need to raise her hand. Her intelligence becomes the scalpel that does the damage. The brutality lies in her lack of hesitation. She doesn't pad her words with kindness, doesn't sugarcoat, doesn't ease people into it. She delivers truth like a clean strike, straight to the core. For those on the receiving end, it feels cruel, even inhuman, but it's simply her unfiltered clarity laid bare. The terrifying part is that once she reaches this state, she doesn't care who can handle it. Friends, family, colleagues, lovers, no one is safe. The veil is gone and she says exactly what she sees. For most people it's devastating, because they realize too late that she always knew more than she let on. At her breaking point, she stops hiding that brilliance. And when her mind is unchained, it doesn't just cut, it destroys illusions. Number 4, she uses pain as rocket fuel. When a Sigma female uses pain as rocket fuel, it's not just resilience, it's transformation. Most people crumble when life crushes them, drowning in heartbreak, betrayal, or disappointment. She doesn't. When she reaches her breaking point, the very weight that should bury her instead ignites her. Every wound, every betrayal, every insult becomes energy she channels into forward motion. What once shattered her becomes the raw material for her next level. She doesn't waste time wallowing in pity or begging for sympathy. Pain doesn't make her smaller, it makes her sharper. Instead of crying herself to sleep, she's up late building, plotting, perfecting. While others are still licking their wounds, she's already turning her scars into strategies. And that's terrifying because the people who tried to break her often end up watching her rise higher than she ever would have without the pain they inflicted. There's something almost mechanical about the way she operates once pain becomes her fuel. She doesn't avoid it, doesn't numb it, doesn't deny it. She refines it. Like fire through steel, her suffering doesn't soften her. It hardens her into something far more dangerous. The same heartbreak that would leave someone else shattered on the floor becomes the quiet rage she pours into her work, her independence, and her transformation. And here's the part that unsettles people most. She doesn't just survive her pain, she thanks it. She understands that without the betrayals, without the losses, without the heartbreak, she never would have evolved into someone this untouchable. The pain that was meant to destroy her becomes the reason she's unstoppable. Those who pushed her to breaking point rarely see it coming. They expected her to beg, to break, to stay down. Instead, they end up watching her rise with terrifying speed, her ambition lit by the very fire they thought would consume her. In a cruel twist, her success becomes a monument to her pain, and a constant reminder to her enemies that they didn't break her, they built her. And once a Sigma female learns to weaponize her pain, nothing in this world can slow her down again. Number 5. Her loyalty mutates into vengeance. When a Sigma female's loyalty mutates into vengeance, it's not the kind of rage people expect. She's not screaming, slashing tires, or throwing tantrums. That would be too easy, and frankly beneath her. What happens instead is far more unnerving. Betrayal doesn't just wound her, it rewrites her. The trust she once gave so fully hardens into something cold, calculated, and terrifyingly deliberate. Loyalty for her is sacred. She doesn't hand it out lightly. And when she does, it means you've been allowed into a place almost no one else reaches. So when someone betrays that, they're not just hurting her feelings. They're committing an unforgivable crime against her very core. And unlike most, she doesn't settle for petty revenge. She doesn't waste her time on temporary satisfaction. She thinks bigger, much bigger. Her vengeance isn't about evening the score, it's about restructuring the entire game. She'll never throw a punch or yell in your face. Instead, she'll dismantle your reputation, cut off your access to her world, or quietly put you in a position where your own flaws destroy you. The terrifying part? She's patient enough to wait. She doesn't strike when emotions are hot. She strikes when the timing ensures maximum damage. And what makes her vengeance brutal isn't just what she does to others. It's what she does to herself in the process. She erases the version of her that trusted you, loved you, or believed in you. That woman is gone, buried, never to return. And in her place stands someone colder, sharper, and immune to the tricks that worked before. People who betray her often mistake her initial silence for forgiveness. They think she's moved on, that she's too strong to hold grudges. But her silence isn't peace, it's plotting. By the time she's done, she doesn't just walk away stronger. She ensures that the betrayal costs the other person far more than it cost her. Her vengeance isn't a loud storm, it's a slow burn that leaves scars you don't recover from. And that's what makes it terrifying. Once her loyalty dies, what replaces it isn't hatred. It's a relentless, surgical form of justice that leaves no way back. Number 6. Her sensitivity hardens into ruthlessness. When a Sigma female's sensitivity hardens into ruthlessness, it's like watching the softest part of her soul turn into steel. This is a woman who once felt everything too deeply, who cried for others in silence, who carried guilt that wasn't hers, who forgave long after forgiveness ran dry. But once she reaches her breaking point, that tenderness doesn't just fade, it calcifies. The very part of her that made her human in the warmest sense transforms into something people no longer recognize. She stops absorbing people's emotions like a sponge. Instead, she develops an indifference so cold it unsettles everyone who once relied on her compassion. Please don't move her. Excuses don't shake her. She listens, yes, but with eyes that register no softness, no sympathy. And for those who once used her sensitivity to manipulate or control her, this shift feels like standing in front of a door that used to be open and finding it welded shut. Her ruthlessness doesn't come from hatred, but from exhaustion. After being drained, dismissed, and betrayed too many times, she realizes that caring too much only served as a weapon against herself. So she adopts the very indifference she once despised in others. But when she wears it, it's even more terrifying, because she wields it with precision. Now, she doesn't just let people face their own consequences, she ensures they do. She won't carry your burdens, won't cushion your fall, and won't apologize for watching you struggle. If you ignored her kindness when it was abundant, you'll feel her absence like a void. The irony is that those who pushed her into ruthlessness are the ones who suffer most from it. They miss the softness they once dismissed. They crave the understanding they once took advantage of. But once her sensitivity hardens, she doesn't hand it back. Ever. And that's the terrifying part. She isn't just cold. She's efficient, strategic, untouchable. The woman who once cared too much no longer cares at all. And when she makes that shift, she becomes someone who can't be guilted, tamed, or controlled ever again. Number 7. She becomes intolerant of weakness. When a Sigma female becomes intolerant of weakness, it's not about arrogance or cruelty. It's about survival. At her breaking point, something inside her shifts, and she no longer has the bandwidth to carry people who refuse to carry themselves. Where she once had patience for endless excuses, she now cuts through them with surgical bluntness. Fragility, manipulation through tears, emotional begging, things she once comforted or tolerated, suddenly make her recoil with a kind of disgust she doesn't bother hiding. This change is brutal because it hits even the people she once protected. She could have been the shoulder they leaned on, the safe space they ran to. But once she's snapped, she sees weakness as a weight designed to keep her from moving forward. She refuses to be anchored anymore. To her, those who constantly collapse under pressure aren't victims. They're liabilities. The terrifying part is that she doesn't even deliver this intolerance with anger. She simply detaches. She'll watch someone drown in their own self-pity without offering a hand, because she's decided that pulling people up only ensures she gets dragged down with them. She knows the cost of carrying others too well, and once she cuts that habit, she never returns to it. This intolerance doesn't mean she hates vulnerability. Vulnerability is honest. Weakness, in her eyes, is different. It's the refusal to take responsibility, the refusal to grow, the weaponization of helplessness to demand endless attention. That's what she no longer tolerates. And when she draws that line, the shift is frightening because she doesn't bend it for anyone. Not friends, not lovers, not even family. What unsettles people most is how fast her compassion turns to ice. One day she's the person you can always lean on. The next, she won't even entertain the same stories of self-destruction. And once she decides someone belongs in the category of weakness, they're written off completely. No second chances, no hand-holding, no return. Her breaking point teaches her something ruthless. Not everyone deserves saving, and from that moment on she saves her strength only for herself, leaving everyone else to fend for themselves whether they're ready or not. Number 8. She cuts off love like it never existed. When a Sigma female cuts off love, it doesn't unravel in pieces or linger like it does for most people. It ends with a kind of cold finality that feels almost inhuman. One day she can give her all, loving with depth, loyalty, and intensity, and the next it's gone, completely severed, as if it never existed at all. There's no halfway with her. Once she detaches, the person who was her everything becomes nothing more than a blank space. What makes this so terrifying is the speed and precision of the shift. Most people take months, sometimes years, to wean themselves off someone they once loved. They cling to memories, replay conversations, hope for reconciliation. A Sigma female doesn't. When her love dies, it doesn't leave room for nostalgia or what-ifs. It just vanishes. And when she looks at the person who once meant the world, there's no hatred, no longing, no lingering tenderness. There's simply nothing. For the person on the receiving end, this is devastating. They go from being the center of her world to being treated like a stranger on the street. And what hurts most is that she doesn't flinch when she does it. There's no ceremony, no drawn-out closure. She just shuts off her emotions like flipping a switch. And once that switch is down, it never comes back on. The truth is, her capacity for deep love is equal to her capacity for absolute detachment. She can give completely, but she can also take it all back without hesitation. And that's the part people never see coming. They assume her loyalty means permanence, when in reality it only lasts as long as she feels respected, valued, and secure. The second betrayal, neglect, or manipulation enters the picture. Her love becomes conditional. And once that condition is broken, the bond dissolves instantly. What makes her so different is that she doesn't need love to survive. She values it, yes, but she isn't enslaved by it. And when it's cut off, she doesn't grieve the way others do. She simply recalibrates her life as though that person never existed at all. That emotional amputation is brutal, final, and deeply unsettling to anyone who thought they'd always have a hold on her. Number 9. Her ambiguity turns into deadly clarity. When a Sigma female's ambiguity turns into deadly clarity, it's like watching fog suddenly burn away under a harsh sun, and what's revealed isn't gentle. She's known for being enigmatic, for keeping her thoughts close, for letting people guess and wonder about what's really on her mind. That mystery often protects her, and at times it even softens her presence. But once she reaches her breaking point, all of that restraint shatters. She no longer has the patience to dance around truths or hide behind silence. Instead, she delivers her words with a precision that cuts people open. Her clarity is terrifying because it leaves no room to hide. She says exactly what she sees, exactly what she thinks, and exactly what others try to avoid acknowledging, and she doesn't coat it in niceties. There are no filters, no disclaimers, no cushioning. Her words land like hard blows, unsoftened by empathy. People who once found safety in her ambiguity suddenly realize how dangerous her mind really is when unleashed. It's not anger that drives this shift, it's exhaustion. She spent too long tolerating nonsense, swallowing her truths, and letting people project their fantasies onto her. At breaking point, she no longer protects them from themselves. She tells the addict they're destroying their life, the manipulator that they're transparent, the coward that they're weak, and she does it with such blunt finality that there's nothing left to argue. The effect is devastating, because her truths expose the very things people spend their lives trying to hide. She has always seen those flaws, but her ambiguity kept them safe. Once clarity takes over, those same people are left stripped bare, forced to face what they've denied. And unlike others who might soften the blow, she has no interest in sparing feelings. The most chilling part? Once she reaches this level of clarity, she doesn't retreat from it. There's no going back to mystery or softness. The filterless honesty becomes her new default, and those around her have to either adapt to it or fall away. Because when a Sigma female decides to speak her mind with deadly clarity, she becomes the one voice in the room nobody can silence, and the one truth people are terrified to hear. Number 10. She turns into her own executioner. When a Sigma female turns into her own executioner, the transformation is as haunting as it is powerful. Unlike most people who only cut ties with toxic relationships, she takes it further. She cuts ties with herself. Not the whole of who she is, but the versions of her that allowed mistreatment, tolerated disrespect, or stayed silent when she should have spoken. Those identities don't just fade away. She kills them off, deliberately and without remorse. This isn't self-destruction, it's self-execution. She looks at the parts of her that once accepted crumbs of love, that once lowered her standards, that once endured manipulation, and she eliminates them with finality. There's no nostalgia, no gentle forgiveness for the old self. She sheds them like snakeskin, leaving them behind as dead weight she refuses to carry into her future. What emerges from this process is sharper, colder, and far less forgiving. She becomes a version of herself that cannot be fooled the same way twice. The softness that once let people walk over her is stripped down, replaced by edges that cut anyone who tries to test her again. It's not that she loses her humanity. It's that she gains a ruthlessness toward herself. She refuses to ever betray her own worth again. The terrifying part is that this self-execution makes her unstoppable. Others cling to old wounds, old identities, and old stories, dragging them forward like chains. She doesn't. She burns them, leaving no chance of resurrection. People who try to use her past against her find that the woman who lived that story no longer exists. And for those who once underestimated her, the shock is brutal. They expect her to return to the version of herself they once exploited. The patient one, the forgiving one, the endlessly loyal one. But that woman has been executed, buried, and replaced. Her breaking point doesn't just change her. It annihilates everything that made her tolerable to abusers and manipulators. She kills off her weaker selves with precision, ensuring they never rise again. And in their place, she becomes someone colder, stronger, and terrifyingly immune to the traps that once held her down. Number 11. She forces people to confront their shadows. When a Sigma female forces people to confront their shadows, it's rarely something she sets out to do. It happens simply because of the way she is. Her presence is like a mirror nobody asked for but can't look away from. She doesn't flatter, she doesn't sugarcoat, and she doesn't participate in the collective delusions people wrap themselves in. By being unapologetically herself, she exposes what others spend their lives trying to bury: their insecurities, hypocrisy, and hidden motives. The unsettling part is that she doesn't even need to call people out directly. Her silence, her refusal to play along, her unwillingness to bend just to make others comfortable, all of it reflects back the truth people avoid. Suddenly the manipulator realizes they're transparent. The pretender realizes their mask is obvious. The coward feels the weight of their fear simply because she won't validate it. Her presence alone makes people aware of what they'd rather deny. And this is exactly why many hate her. It's easier to label her cold, arrogant, or difficult than to admit she has simply revealed what they didn't want to face. Instead of owning their flaws, they project them onto her, blaming her for the discomfort that's really born from their own shadows. For her, this isn't about power or control. She isn't trying to destroy anyone. But when she's pushed to her breaking point, her tolerance for lies and pretenses evaporates. She stops cushioning people with patience and starts letting them sit in the raw glare of their own truth. And the truth is merciless. What makes this terrifying is how deeply it affects those around her. People don't just feel seen. They feel exposed, stripped of the masks they've worn for years. And because she doesn't flinch or soften in the face of those shadows, they can't escape them anymore. The irony is that the very thing that makes her hated is also what makes her unforgettable. Once she's reflected your shadow back at you, you can't unsee it. Even if you run from her, you'll carry that discomfort forever, knowing she wasn't the problem, but the mirror you weren't ready to face. Number 12. She shuts off forgiveness permanently. When a Sigma female shuts off forgiveness permanently, it's not a pause, not a temporary wall, not something that time or apologies can soften. It's absolute. At her breaking point, she doesn't just end relationships. She erases the possibility of them ever returning. Her no doesn't mean convince me, it doesn't mean maybe one day. It means the door is sealed shut, welded closed, and the key has been destroyed. For the person on the receiving end, it feels like death, not of their own body, but of the bond they thought was unshakable. This is terrifying because most people rely on forgiveness as a cycle. They mess up, apologize, cry a little, and get welcomed back in. They expect history to bend in their favor if they push hard enough. But with her, once she cuts, there's no cycle. The bridge doesn't just burn. She salts the earth where it stood so nothing can ever grow there again. What makes this different from ordinary coldness is the finality of it. She doesn't block people to get their attention, doesn't walk away hoping to be chased. Her departure is clean, irreversible, and merciless. And she won't sit around waiting for them to understand why. She has no interest in closure or reconciliation because, in her mind, the story is over. Those who betrayed her often mistake her silence for a temporary phase. They think she'll soften with time, that the woman who once forgave endlessly will return. But that version of her is gone. When she decides she's finished, she isn't just cutting them out of her present, she's removing them from her future too. What unsettles people most is how little emotion she shows when she does it. There's no breakdown, no endless explanations, no maybe if things change, just a quiet, unwavering line drawn in stone. And when she draws it, it's permanent. Her forgiveness, once infinite, becomes extinct. And in that extinction lies her power, the terrifying ability to end a connection so completely that it feels like it never existed in the first place. For those who thought they'd always find a way back to her, that truth is the most devastating punishment of all. When a Sigma female reaches her breaking point, it's not chaos for chaos's sake. It's evolution in its rawest, most terrifying form. Every thread of patience that was once stretched thin snaps clean. Every ounce of softness that was once poured out dries up forever. And every shadow of betrayal, pain, or pressure is converted into something sharper, colder, and unstoppable. She doesn't just break, she transforms. The woman who once gave endlessly becomes the woman who withholds completely. The one who once sought connection now builds a life where no one can touch her. And the frightening truth is that once this change happens, there is no going back. Her breaking point isn't loud, it isn't dramatic, it's surgical. She cuts off what no longer serves her, including versions of herself that tolerated too much. She stops forgiving, she stops begging, she stops masking her intelligence, and she stops playing the human game altogether. What's left behind is someone ungoverned by shame, untouched by manipulation, and immune to the same traps that once caught her. That's why she becomes terrifying. She is no longer available to the world that tried to consume her. And here's the haunting part. The people who once dismissed her kindness, underestimated her silence, or fed off her empathy will realize too late what they destroyed. Her love, her softness, her loyalty, gone like a myth. All that remains is the version of her they can neither break nor reach. So if there's one lesson here, it's this. Never push a Sigma female to her breaking point, because when she finally snaps, it's not her end, it's yours. If this resonated with you and opened your eyes to the raw power of a Sigma female's breaking point, don't just leave it here. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss more content like this. Make sure to like the video, drop your thoughts in the comments, and share it with someone who needs to understand just how different and terrifying a Sigma female becomes when she's pushed too far. Your support keeps this channel growing, and trust me, what's coming next is even more unfiltered, brutally honest, and extraordinary.